We got a bad situation right now. Zach Knight found that he could use his penis. He's got the perfect penis. He could use it like a laser to encase Angelina Ballerina in a cocoon. And she was twirling round and round in the cocoon, and we thought we had her under control. And the cocoon was getting thicker and thicker, and my men were feeding Zach Gatorade to help him stay hydrated so he could keep making his semen to wrap her around in a cocoon. And then he took a break for, I think, like a minute because he was getting tired. And if you go to my Patreon page, you'll see the transcript of my brain-to-brain communication with him. And also, I've also posted a video that I made of my Skype conversation with him. He took a break for about a minute and sipped some Gatorade. And then she burst out of the cocoon. It exploded like a bomb, and it took out one of the decks on one of the towers on Church of Gail, and Zach and I got knocked unconscious because of the explosion. And in the meanwhile, because everybody at Church of Gail started relaxing and feeling like they had Angelina under control because of Zach Knight's perfect penis and the laser over her, Terrence Jenkins, Hugh Jackman, and Brent Spiner went down to Earth for a family reunion. And let me read you the letter that I got from Brent Spiner about this. Dearest Gail, I recently had both the fortune and misfortune of attending Terrence Jenkins' family reunion. What started as a happy occasion turned into complete chaos. So much has happened, it will take a mouthful to explain. Since Matthew and Gerard have been gone, Matthew and Gerard are still under Angelina's control. We got them back, and they started vomiting and everything, and then they went back to Angelina, and she got them back. Since Matthew and Gerard have been gone, Terrence and Hugh Jackman have been doing a lot of bonding, mostly by playing basketball together at the church rec center. Terrence had an upcoming family reunion at the old Popeyes, the one formerly owned by his late grandmama, and Hugh asked if he could come along. Hugh had been becoming more curious about black culture, and with all of us being on your marriage list, we're kind of like family too. I asked if I could come as well, being that Hugh didn't have much exposure to black people. Since my best friend LeVar Burton was black, I thought I would make a good cultural translator for Hugh. Terrence gladly welcomed us both. The three of us arrived together at the Popeyes. Wafts of crispy fried chicken and hot potato wedges permeated the air, their heavy oils wetting my face and making me salivate. The building and surrounding parking area was jammed with hundreds of black people, their voices excited and raucous as they laughed and conversed. The female family members serving up chicken from behind the counter had to be even louder than the crowd in order to notify anyone of the fresh batches of food still coming out of the boiling hot deep fryers. Their shouts were high and assertive as they shoved out trays and pushed cups of purple drink, not to be confused with grape juice or Kool-Aid, between tight clusters of busily conversing blacks. Outside, a few of the black men had their car windows rolled down, blaring bass-boosted rap music that vibrated the ground and shook the windows. I could see Hugh getting a little nervous. There was a sudden explosion of aggressive-sounding yelling from across the room, followed by bombastic laughter causing him to jump. I put my hand on his shoulder to reassure him, chuckling. It's just a different culture, Hugh. No need to be shy. A minimally dressed young black woman knocked into Hugh's shoulder as she passed the two of us on the way to the women's bathroom, and he turned to look. Like a train, two other women followed her in a line, followed by three black men, all of them smiling excitedly at one another. Hugh did a double take, then looked at me. Those men just followed those girls into the women's restroom, Hugh said quietly. Oh, yes, I answered. In black culture, public bathrooms are a very important social resource. It's where young black men and women go when they're ready to have a family and they meet a black person of the opposite sex. You mean they're going in there to get pregnant? Hugh asked incredulously. Yeah, Brent be right, Terrence chipped in. Making babies the old-fashioned way. Ah, yeah, that be my little nieces in there. I'm so happy for them. 'Cause she already got 8 or 9 kids back at her mom's house, and I think Laquifa got 5. Shawnee, I think this be her first one. Her mama in jail, though. She might have to drop it off with her aunt. Huh? They don't raise the babies, Hugh asked. Oh, no, I chuckled. It's tradition for black women to raise each other's children. The responsibility usually falls upon the grandmother. The younger women have a hard time finding men to grow their families with if they have too many kids to look after. What about the fathers? Black men are genetically programmed to leave. Black men are genetically programmed to leave once the woman is pregnant. It's how they diversify their gene pool. Don't they ever get married? Very seldomly. Married black people are more common in regions of the U.S. that don't have as many public bathrooms. Take the West Coast, for example. Have you noticed how there are way fewer black people in Los Angeles, California versus Orlando, Florida? A few decades ago, California enacted statewide changes to limit their black population, which involved cutting the number of public bathrooms and making most public bathrooms require a key. If black people want to have babies, they have little choice but to get married. Otherwise, the odds are too slim of meeting someone new who happens to be black and also happens to be near any public bathrooms. I gotcha now, Brent. I didn't mean to sound racist or ignorant, Hugh apologized. That's quite all right, Hugh. You're educating yourself, which is the right thing to do. Our conversation was interrupted by loud screaming. A hulking, large black woman came jiggling over to Terrance, her arms outstretched. Terry! She cried shrilly. Quifanda! Terrance exclaimed. The buffalo-sized woman threw her body aggressively around Terrance in a thick bear hug, her warm breasts embracing his face seemingly of their own accord. Hugh startled with a loud roar and instinctively shot his fist into the woman's face to protect Terrance, who he thought was being smothered alive in this woman's bosom. The woman let out a yell of shock. Her already fat lips swelled up to twice their size, now taking up almost her whole face. Oh, my goodness, Terrance exclaimed. This quieted the rest of the Popeyes as multiple heads turned to look toward the injured Quifanda. Auntie Quifanda, you all right, bitch? A young man worriedly yelled. Shit dog, another man moaned. Voices from all over the room continued to chime in. I stay back, dog. Auntie Quifanda's face all blowed up. She don't need your ashy nigga arms all up in her face. That my grandmama to me, nigga. That bitch raised my ass. Who you callin' nigga? The voices rose, the tension escalated until all of a sudden the entire room imploded. The sea of black people seemingly diverged in on itself as all of them began to riot inside the tiny Popeyes. Hey, that be fresh chicken. Don't be getting your ashy nigger asses all in my chicken. We eatin' dat, a girl at the counter yelled. She then screamed as her weave was torn from her head, and blacks began surging over the counter to begin throwing all of the food and destroying all of the equipment. Tables were being turned over in the dining area. People were screaming and yelling. I had to duck as a chair was thrown and sent crashing through a glass window. Hugh curled his fists and got ready to fight. I calmly put my hand to his chest to stop him. We're all right, Hugh. It's just a chimp out. A chimp out? Yeah, it's a bit like a black people thunderstorm. It's natural for them. It will pass soon. Just stay calm. I ducked again as a Gucci bag was flung toward my face. Terrance and I guided Hugh carefully through the raging chimp out, our shoes crunching on brightly colored fake nails beneath our feet. We watched from the sidelines as the Popeyes was being ravaged from the inside out. Terrance sat down, finally beginning to eat from a bucket of fried chicken. He chuckled at the scene before him. Look at them, couple of shaboons clawing off each other's extensions. Oh, my goodness. Shouldn't we call the cops, Hugh asked. We can't, I said simply. We're on Martin Luther King Street. No cop is going to show up here, especially if we tell them what's going on. What? Hugh was confused. I didn't have time to explain. The doors opened and a very white woman, dressed in all pink, tiptoed into the Popeyes. Oh my goodness, Terrance yelled, standing up so fast he spilled the bucket of fried chicken all over his groin and pant legs. No white woman in her right mind would show up in a crowd of black men. Especially in the middle of a Class 4 chimp out, I said. The tiptoed woman began dancing and then twirling herself all the way toward the middle of the Popeyes. That was when the winds changed. As if they all noticed her at the same time, all of the black men in the room began turning in unison toward the white woman to begin raping her. Hugh stood up and I planted my hand to his chest again. This is normal, Hugh, don't worry. But something about this black gang rape of a white woman in a Popeyes was not normal. I couldn't put my finger on it. That was when Terrance took off running toward the white woman. Terrance, no! Hugh, we need to stop him. Hugh, what are you doing? Hugh had taken off with Terrance, both of the men now forcing their way through the frenzied crowd to rape this strange woman. That was when I realized this woman was Angelina Ballerina. I felt my penis become more erect than it had ever been my entire life. So hard it ripped straight through the front of my pants. Before I could stop myself, I began racing toward the crowd, consumed with the thought of raping her. To my anguish, I was met with a wall of impossibly strong black men. I pried and pulled, desperate to get between them, but they were rock solid. It reminded me of the time I got into a fight with a retard. Black people have retard strength, I thought to myself. Scientists later confirmed to me that black people are genetically far stronger than whites. Put simply, the selective breeding involved in designing them for hard labor as slaves had created the perfect assault and rape machines. As a white man, I was unable to join the gang rape without their permission. They were in their element, so to speak. This is probably what very likely saved my life. In my aroused haze, I wound up bumping into Fonda and like an animal threw myself on her from behind and began raping her. I couldn't stop myself. I blacked out for several minutes, ravaging this poor ebony woman beyond my control. When I came to, Angelina was already making her way out of the Popeyes. Terrance and Hugh were holding her hand from either side, while Angelina skipped along between them in satisfaction, disappearing with both of them back to her ship. I politely picked up Fonda's weave, which had fallen off while I was raping her, then courteously apologized. Don't you worry, sugar, Fonda replied sweetly, understanding. This fin to happen. Don't you worry your little white heart. I barely felt it anyway, honey. I was grateful that I hadn't hurt Fonda, but I was still very much ashamed. Hanging my head, I hurriedly took my leave from the Popeyes. I am disheartened to report that Angelina Ballerina has now captured Terrance Jenkins and Hugh Jackman, and that I myself barely escaped. This woman is dangerous, and she is after all the men. I refuse to become the next victim. We must fight her, and we must defeat her. Your husband, Brent Spiner. Okay, what has happened is that I tried shooting my lightning bolts on Angelina. They're not even phasing her. And now the laser from Zach's penis is not phasing her either. She's inside this pink spaceship, and she's orbiting the Earth. And everything we're shooting, it's a very powerful ship. And if we try to attack it, Zach says the explosion will be too deadly. It will have a very deadly explosion, and it just would be too dangerous. And we don't know what to do. I'm trying to shoot lightning bolts at her, but she's inside this pink spaceship, and my lightning bolts aren't even phasing her. She's got Hugh Jackman, Terrance Jenkins, Gerard Butler, Matthew McConaughey inside this pink spaceship that's orbiting the Earth. My lightning bolts and my power shoes on her are not even phasing her. The pink spaceship just deflects them. And now Zach Knight, when he aims his laser at her, she inside this pink spaceship, it's not even, we don't know. Scientists out there, if you can help us come up with a solution. She went down to Los Angeles, destroyed half the city. Then Zach Knight hit her with his laser beam, and now she's in this spaceship. There's an email underneath. Call us if you can. I have some sad news to report.